I know there's 3 people out there from another land who don't know who you are. Tell us who you are, what you do, what your title is, who you report to, some context for the conversation.
Okay. My name's Colleen Fahey Rush. I work at MTV Networks. I'm Chief Research Officer. We are not just MTV. We're Nickelodeon and Comedy Central and MTV, VH1, TV Land, Spike, lots and lots and lots of brands. I report to Carol Robinson. She's the Chief of Staff for MTV Networks. We, throughout the company, have folks that are dedicated to digital analytics, linear analytics, consumer insights, support ad sales, work very closely with them on positioning ourselves to the marketplace and sharing our insights as well. We have a lot going on.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot. How many people were in research? About how many?
You know, I don't really know anymore. And if I did, I might not actually even say.
Touché, very good. Now we know a little about you. Let's talk about an issue. We all spoke before in advance to talk about things. You seem to think that measuring content across platforms is a big deal. Why, and what's the background there?
Well, you know, just like all the folks on the panel before said, cross-platform is how people are consuming things. And of course, at MTV Networks, our audiences are certainly doing exactly that. They are watching TV, they're using their mobile devices, they're using VOD, they're doing everything that you can possibly do, enjoying their content. For instance, Tosh.0 is a show that's on Comedy Central. And when that show's off the air, the app gets downloaded even more because they just got to have their Tosh. If you're a Tosh fan, you know what I'm saying. And
my nephew is.
Okay.
He understands.
So I think that one of the things that we say is that there's never been a better time to be a fan. And I think that that's also true of being in research and in measurement. The challenges are huge. The insights that you can bring to bear for programmers and advertisers are so important to them to understand how things are being consumed, what makes an impact, so that we continue to surround our consumers with our content in ways that work for them. And there's all different kinds of consumers, but also to serve up the ads that, that are going to make them swoon for those brands. So it's our problem as a media provider, but also, we're tackling it on behalf also of marketers.
Well, where are the measurement shortfalls? I hate to use that phrase. I just say, where could it be better, I should say.
I think that certainly some progress has been made. For instance, Nielsen has begun to pursue this extended screen measurement. And obviously yesterday there was a couple of breakout sessions where they were talking more specifically about their online GRP and then their cross-platform reach and frequency measurement tools. So that's good. And Nielsen's the biggest one, and one of the things that we say is, they're always in a game of catch-up, but they somehow always get there first. That said, there's a ton of other innovation that's happening and must happen because we don't have an awful lot of visibility into really what's happening in mobile. Once an app gets downloaded, there's not an awful lot of understanding of exactly how and when and for how long apps are being used. And we know that the app economy is a really robust one right now and one that we'd like to have some more understanding of.
Well, I'm thinking about MTV Networks also as a big advertiser.
Sure.
I mean, other media, what about radio, out of home?
We use all of it. We use all of it because, like I said before, I mean, if your target is a Comedy Central viewer, they are listening to the radio, they are watching TV, they are reading magazines, they are going online and watching online video or watching it on their mobile devices. So if we're going to be relevant to them and have the kind of relationships that we already have with them and want to continue to be, continue those, then we have to continue to be in all those places and spaces. What we just don't know is enough about really how it's all getting used, which is why the Holy Grail continues to be some sort of single source measurement. But that doesn't mean that we can take our eye off of the ball when it comes to the individual platform measurements. We still need rich, granular data on each of the platforms while we're also pursuing cross-platform.
It's a lot of work to do.
It is a lot of work. It's exhausting, but it has to, we all have skin in the game.
Well, now that we just covered, quote, media, now we have social media. So we're adding to this wealth of challenges, opportunities.
Yep.
You talked to me a bit about buzz and other things the other day.
Well, I think right now social media, we're harnessing it as sort of a giant eavesdropping exercise. We do a lot of buzz measurement with companies like Collective Intellect and Radian 6 and others. And then we also try to learn as much as we can about how, like with companies like Meteor, around how our content and how ads are being shared, sort of like virtual breadcrumbs. And those are dynamics that help us. They're additional tools in our toolkit. They aren't replacing anything. And that's part of the rub is, my research budget doesn't necessarily grow for all of the tools that it needs year over year. And I've kind of, we do a lot of test and learn. We try to pilot before we do full enterprise deals.
What does that mean?
That means that we try to work with the research community in a way that's going to work for us and for them. We can't get into multi-year deals because there's too much innovation happening and too much technological change happening all the time. We try to cut shorter deals. We try to pilot first so that we can find out if this tool is going to work for measuring our audiences, for measuring our content. We'll get a couple of brands involved in a pilot for a couple of months, and we'll find out if it works, and then we'll cut an enterprise-wide deal. Because a lot of times, we'll be working with a vendor, and they don't really realize how big we are, how demanding we are, how sophisticated we need their tool to be, and it can all turn out to be really frustrating for both sides of the table unless we go into it really informed and really prepared.
It must occupy a lot of time. That must be a big chunk.
If I had $1 for every vendor meeting I've taken in my office, I'd have more shoes.
You may have some more shoes. Well, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you may get a lot more meetings after this conversation. Leave out the shoes. Okay, I'm just reading my notes here. What is earned media? What does that mean for you?
Well, that means I didn't buy it. That means I earned it because I'm worth, the content is worth talking about to someone else or sharing or posting. That's what earned media is.
Are you measuring it?
We're trying. Like things like, there was a breakout session yesterday that I learned about another company that's doing something like that I would love to name check right now, except I can't remember their name.
Okay, we gave him a chance. My head is spinning from all of this. I mean, what's your dream? I mean, we're doing the magic one. We did this several months ago. It was a very interesting conference, and it was very demanding. And I said, "So, what would you like? Magically, what could happen? Something we talked about affinity or engagement or something? What would you like to see happen?"
Well,
doesn't mean if it's practical or not.
Right. I think one of the things that's, if I could wave my magic measurement wand, I would love for, this cross-platform behemoth to exist the way that so many people have said already this conference. But something that I think could actually help us get there is something that SIM shepherded through a project called Taxi, which basically is the idea of putting a UPC code on all content that would be standardized in such a way that it would travel across platforms. It would be readable by measurement systems across platforms. It's not just a research initiative, though. We did a ton of legwork to find out how the industry felt about this and talked to loads of people in different agencies, advertisers, and media companies, an array of different functions, and everybody's like, yes, let's do this. But then the rubber hits the road, and how do you actually do it? And it's not just something that's that research can do by itself. There's other functions in our organization, like engineering and tech, that would need to be involved.
You still have that dream of being able to go out and speak to marketers and say, each of these networks has some special type of engagement, and describe it?
Yeah, that was such a big emphasis a couple of years ago, and I think that that it's really been replaced by such urgency around getting at least exposure metrics on all of these other new places and spaces where people are consuming content that has just sort of receded into the background. And that's, we know that our audiences are highly engaged in our content, and therefore the ads that are in our content. And so, that it's a little bit of a shame that that's gone off to the side for now.
Something to look forward to.
Sure.
And I'm a little embarrassed that we've run out of time. We promised these speakers we just spend 10 intimate minutes together. I wish we had another hour. Thank you.
That's okay.
So, first thing, so we're going to put some context. Who are you? What's your role? What do you do? What's business?
So I'm Worldwide Director of Performance at Initiative. Initiative is a company that plans and buys media worldwide for clients. Our strategy at Initiative is to connect everything that we do to client business results. So to transition our company from one that provides media plans and buys to clients to one that's directly accountable for client business results. And ultimately to get paid based on the performance that we create for clients in the marketplace. So my job at Initiative is to architect how that works from a data and analytics perspective, to work on our approaches, our tools, our talent. Also to accelerate Initiative worldwide in our 55 markets towards that vision. As well as to build our analytics capabilities globally.
What's the most interesting part of that job? One of the most interesting parts of that job?
I think the interesting part is the different ways that one can create change and all of the different tools and tricks that one learns in order to get organizations to behave differently and get people to behave differently. And certainly in a worldwide context, that becomes very interesting with different markets and different cultures.
Well, so that's what your role is. So what is the future of audience research? We're talking about audience. I know it's only a part of the job, part of the role.
Right.
What do you see as the future?
I think that the future of audience research is that it goes away, basically.
Pay attention, folks.
So, CMOs, as we heard in the last couple of panels, are not interested in, they can't go to their boards and say, we reached this many people last year, so you should allow me to keep my job. They're accountable for business results. And they want their marketing investment to be accountable for business results. So when your focus is on marketing outcomes, it becomes less important how many people you reached and who you reached, but what effect that you created. So I think while audience research is useful as a currency and will be useful for some time to come, I think in the short and medium term, audience research will be best served the more it can be aligned to marketing effectiveness measurement as an input. And then in the longer term, I think that it diminishes in importance and it is ultimately replaced by measures of accountability in the marketplace.
Tell me about measures. What do you describe what measures of accountability are? And you have a nice background in that area.
Right. So I think a great example is digital. And when we talk about performance at Initiative, we talk about making the whole marketing mix performance media, so all media, performance media. And I think when you look within digital, the rise of search is a great example of a type of media that is measurable to a consumer behavior and to a business result, and one that is bought and sold and planned based on that intermediate marketing outcome. Of course, when we buy search, we're not necessarily know that we're going to get a sale, obviously depending on what type of your business it is. But there's something so compelling about being able to buy a business result. And I think that that's kind of a pretty clear construct for the way the rest of media is going to go. Now, it doesn't mean that all media is going to be measured against a behavioral outcome or a direct response. But I do think that media has to be measured against some sort of output or outcome that is important to the business.
Well, only modeling can do that. Is that true?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think that there are a number of ways, if we're looking at the entire media mix all the way down to a particular tactic, that we can align measurement to a branding result or some sort of behavior. So we have media investment on one side, and we have the ultimate business result on the other, which is sales. We can't relate every dollar that we spend to that sale. So our job is to figure out what those intermediate
Right.
steps are and those intermediate measures are that are meaningful, that are correlated to that ultimate business result. And that gives us a view of what our objectives ought to be, what our strategy ought to be, and ultimately how we need to measure our investments.
Would you say, I mean, in effect, you're really a variation of the traditional research director at an agency like I was over at Mindshare? It's a very different role, very different background. Do you find yourself calling on clients at a more senior level because of this approach?
Sure, absolutely. I think that we're dealing with, depending on the company, but we're dealing with CMO concerns. They're not concerns that traditionally concern the media department. So I tend to not have conversations with people that are worried about the audience, but are worried about revenue or the cost of sale or profitability. And I think that is a good thing for our agency, a good thing overall for the industry when we can raise up that conversation and align it with the goals of the business itself.
So there was still, so let me see if I can paraphrase this. There's still people at Initiative who work with you, who attend Nielsen meetings. They want to find out what's going on with MRI and Simmons. They're paying attention to Arbitron. It's important to keep up with that. It's just your perspective and your role is different.
No, in fact, what we've done in the United States in the last 8 months or so is we've built an analytics department from scratch. We didn't have one. Built that as a revenue stream. And then we have, in the last 2 months or so, taken all of the research team that was traditionally the traditional research director type role, and we've made that a part of the analytics team. So we're trying to align everybody's work to the outcome and to a planning based on performance. Certainly, analysis with MRI data and Nielsen data can be very valuable in that context. It's just making sure that we have the context right, which is the goal of aligning what we're doing to a business outcome.
So how is the reaction within the company?
Well, I'm lucky. This is a strategy that originated from my boss, who's the worldwide CEO. So we have, it's very clear where we want to go. I think, my last job was at the New York Times, and I was surprised when I moved over to the agency world that there were a lot of similarities in that the current business model is so clearly untenable. The commoditization of media is a curse upon both the traditional agency model as well as a quality publisher like the New York Times. So within that context, to convince a market leader that we need to change our business and that we need to orient towards marketing outcomes, it makes it a lot easier when the writing is on the wall that the old way of doing business isn't tenable.
I think there's a couple of people shaking and a lot of people being very excited. We're just saying, Well, so if the future of research is measuring outcomes, what is the Holy Grail? What's the end game there?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I think that the Holy Grail is realizing there is no Holy Grail. Internet technology, which I grew up in as a researcher, I think has set expectations that everything can be measured directly from an ad to an outcome, and that certainly is true in certain cases. But to abstract out that to display media, to social media, to traditional media, and to think that we can measure everything from ad to outcome, I think leads us into a lot of spider holes or rabbit holes or whatever the metaphor is. So what I think we have to do if we're trying to innovate, and we need to bring creativity obviously to the solution, I think we need to bring measurement into a context of insights where we're connecting information and not simply collecting and analyzing it.
What are you looking for when you're hiring people these days?
People that understand marketing, have a business point of view, know what it means to try to sell a product and to invest in that, and people that understand media and all the different modes of measurement that are available to us.
I wish we had another 40 minutes. We're just getting started. Thank you so much,
very
Jeffrey.
much.
How are you?
I am good. I'm enjoying this.
This is terrific
some
so far.
conversation.
Fantastic.
All right, let's see. That's Jeffrey. We took care of that. Not that you and I didn't rehearse this. So who are you? What do you do? What's your role? Tell us.
What's my role? I lead the TVB, which is the formerly known as the Television Bureau of Advertising. We represent all the local broadcast stations across the United States. My job is to promote the use of their media assets to advertising agencies, but more importantly, my job is to drive business to my member stations. That's what I do.
It's just the stations, or is it also all the ancillary?
Well, I mean, when I talk stations, I'm talking hyperlocal, I'm talking digital, I'm talking mobile, across the board, any asset that they have. A lot of them are doing deal-a-day deals now with white labels. So whatever they do, that's what we promote.
Certainly different than the conversation 10 years ago if we were talking.
It is very different than the conversation 10 years ago.
Who do you report to?
Well, I have a board, but I really report to an executive board, which is about 8 people, which consists of group broadcasters,
Right.
O&Os, reps, and syndicators. But my main report is to our chairman, Dave Luigi, who's the president of Gannett Local Broadcast.
You have a staff? How many people are there?
I do have a staff, David. I don't do this alone, thank God. I have a staff of 16 people. As I talked about before, we kind of revamped and redid the TVB over the past year. And if you haven't been to our website, go. It's really cool, it's new, it's brilliant.
How do you get there?
tvb.org.
All
Real
right.
simple.
Here we
Keep
go.
everything very simple. But a lot of our staff is in business development, going out and pitching to either advertisers who have left Spot TV or who we think there's an opportunity to go back to Spot TV, and that's predominantly the staff. Then we have a nice research staff to talk about all the things we're probably going to talk about today. And then, of course, advocacy, which is a big part of what we do in terms of PR and corporate communications.
Well, this is a measurement conversation.
Yes.
So we had a look, we planned a little on this. It's media measurement. So you want to talk about measurement in local stations, et cetera?
Yes,
Deep
it
breath,
seems to have gotten a lot of press the past year or so. I mean, clearly, we need better measurement systems. If we can't measure our audiences, then we're out of business. And with audiences and content going across several devices, that's the first thing. I mean, I remember Reno was here 2 panels ago and having a large conversation with Reno, and the biggest thing on his mind is getting audience measures across every device. I mean, Shelley Palmer says the best, people watch or will look at content on the best screen available. And whether it's a huge 100-inch screen over here or whether it's a little screen here, that's what they're going to do. But if we can't measure that content, we can't monetize it. And that's really what's holding back in terms of getting more content on those types of devices. That's one. Secondly, I mean, our measurement system is still archaic. We have diaries.
Which is yours? We're talking about local stations.
Local
now.
station.
All right, just want to make sure.
We have diaries. And I can't remember what I ate for dinner last night, and I got to remember what I watched over the past week. We need to get to set-top box data. We need to start using that in terms of really getting measurements so you don't see those variances on a survey-by-survey period, where one survey period, a television show won't get a rating, and another survey period will get a 2. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense. We need to, and I think set-top box data will allow us to kind of even that out. Now, there are issues with set-top box data that needs to be fixed, but I think it's something we need to move toward. Now, clearly still, you got a lot of people, 15% of the United States, that still get their content over the air. They use an antenna. And cord cutting is a real phenomenon. So somehow you have to have some sort of panel data with set-top box data to measure that. But we really need that measurement. But the bottom line on measurement is people don't want to buy demography anymore. I mean, I see clients all the time, and you talk about efficiency, and I told them, I can make you so efficient, I can make you invisible. But is that really what you want? I mean, what do you want? You want to drive business. And the only way we're going to drive business is getting to single source research. The only way we're going to do that is to get away from demographics and get into biographics. That this, people that are watching this show bought a car 5 years ago. Well, I know they're in the marketplace to buy a car. Or people who watch this show, haven't had an eye exam in a year. I know they're going to go get an eye exam and they're going to be looking for glasses. That, to me, is the holy grail.
Well, let's see. There were about 6 controversial comments in there. Where do we start? Well, one is there is measurement.
Yes.
There is certainly measurement, daily measurement on people meters Nielsen is providing. And so it's not all diary. It's
That's
some
correct.
diary. you know, and we used to work together at a place. So you're telling me that when you were managing the American Express business, you'd be able to do deals and to transact and be able to get down. How could you do that? How could you change the whole ecosystem of negotiating?
Well, I think bottom line is that, you know, with American Express, you have transaction data. If you can marry that transaction data with set-top box data and television data, boy, you've got a lot of granular information you could use to buy off of. And it would put, quite frankly, the negotiation leverage on the buyer side, because they would have that information in the background, knowing what to buy. But you have to get that data.
Don't tell Reno.
I won't tell Reno.
We are three short ones. So
Sure.
the measurement. Anything else about measurement?
No, that's.
Okay.
I think that's good enough.
You got people already anxious. So social media.
Social media. I think you know. I take social media. I think social media is the best thing to have on television. Glee, The Voice, American Idol. Okay, American Idol was the first one. Remember, you texted. I mean, I worked on that business. AT&T. We brought texting into voting, you know, for contestants. I think it's the best thing that ever happened to it, because what do people talk about in social media? They talk about entertainment. They talk about television. It's actually driving ratings and driving conversations. And I think on a programming side, what we need to do is do more of that type of programming. You're seeing it more in local news, where you'll see, you know, Twitter feeds coming up, et cetera. But the bottom line to me is I'd get a bunch of 24-year-olds, put them on a mountain and tell them, okay, I know you guys are social media magnets, but what kind of program would you come up with that would be able to meld social media with television programming? And to me, I think that's a grand slam.
I have to tell you something. When I heard about American Idol, this is not a dig at the show at all, I said, who is going to want to go back to that type of old-fashioned genre? Just like who would ever want to go back to a Western? It's always changing.
It's absolutely
Tastes always
right.
are changing. Mobile?
Mobile is going to be gigantic. I mean, on the television side is, you know, we're bringing out mobile, but it's a broadcast signal.
Okay.
So it's not a streaming signal.
Okay.
You're actually getting, and whether it's on your iPad or whether it's on your smartphone, you're actually getting a signal right to your phone or right to your iPad, and the ability to do interactive, the ability to do GPS type marketing, et cetera. I think it's gigantic. You see it now. You see people in stores with their smartphone, and they're kind of checking things and checking pricing and reviewing products, et cetera. I was with a dealership the other day, and he talks about how people come in with their smartphones and they're negotiating with another dealership while they're talking to him. It's crazy. But I think that's the future, and I think we've got to embrace it.
Hyperlocal, in effect.
Hyperlocal. I
Come
mean, it's gigantic. You got Google getting into it. You got AOL Patch. I mean, every client I see talks about local, 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 and I talk about, you know, the breadth of services that our stations provide, which is hyperlocal websites, community websites, which are very, very big and growing, and a lot more are getting into these, I'll call them interest sites. They're community sites, but they are like sites for people who are getting married, or sites for people who are, my son just got married, that's why you're smiling.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Sites for people who are getting married, or sites for people who are in the market to buy a house.
Right.
And those interest sites seem to be getting a lot of traction right now. And a lot of stations, so what they're doing is they're not just branding the sites with their call letters, they're actually branding the interest site. And I think that there's something there to it.
It sounds like an expensive proposition to create, though.
Well, everything's expensive, and that's the issue. I mean, it's the content, and it's a lot of manpower, and you know, and I think what has to happen is you're going to see an aggregation of journalists within a marketplace, et cetera, to be able to get that content on there, because you're not going to be able to do it individually. It just costs too much money.
Snap your fingers. What do you want to change tomorrow magically? Tomorrow, first, one thing you only get. Only one of these.
Change. I like what he said before about reading the fast forward on the DVR. I thought that was brilliant. I like that a lot. For me, I mean, the bottom line is if we had one, and I think everybody said it before, if we had one currency we can transact business off of that was based on business results and not on audience demographics, to me, that's the holy grail, and that's what we have to work towards. And it's got to be an industry thing. But you know how it's going to happen, David? It's only going to happen with one agency, one advertiser, with one vendor who will do it the first time, and then everybody will get on board.
There's a call to action for everyone.
It's a big call to action, exactly right.
Where'd the time go? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Come on,
Good to see
give
you.
Steve a big hand. We got a lot covered in 10 minutes.